variance, and this is part of the process.
Can I speak?
Yes, sir.
I guess I'd have two things. One, I don't think it's going through the motion to file for a variance. It's a very serious issue. The second thing is, I guess my question is going to be, why can't we respect the 15-foot setback from the back wall?
Well, I'm going to just reply to one piece of this. First of all, the zoning requirements were adopted in 1983, and were the best case set of compromises, trying to fit after the fact, fitting an extraordinarily wide number of circumstances and situations. Virtually every single house in Virginia-Highland is in violation of one of the setback laws.
No, I don't think that's true. They were grandfathered if they were prior to the rules, so that's not a violation.
Fair, good point. I think I spoke improperly, and I appreciate that. Any correction within the footprint, a new building within most houses within existing footprints in Virginia-Highland would then require a variance, as this one appears to do. So, is your concern with going up from the existing house, or
This process, I don't know what we're doing, and there's a process to go through. I went through a zoning variance, so if you'll allow me a moment. And how I approached mine was I went and met with every neighbor and showed them all the plans and said, hey, here's what I'm thinking about doing. I want to be consistent with the neighborhood. If there's something you don't like, tell me. I'm not married to any of it. We'll change it. I don't like this being on there, and if we're going to have an exception, I think the neighbors all need to be aware of what it is, have it explained to them, and then they can all opine.
Mr. Arnold, to your knowledge, have the neighbors been provided with a chance to see the plans as they currently exist?
Honestly, I don't know. I didn't file a variance. Jack filed the variance. I'm assisting him. I will be doing the architecture, and it will be a two-car garage that would look an awful lot, if not exactly like that, with a 5 to 12-foot roof, compatible with the neighborhood. This should have been part of the package he sent the neighbors. I'm guessing it wasn't. Usually, if I file a variance on behalf of an applicant, I send out plans and elevations of what we're going to build, because you're right. That's exactly what this is about. Why is it 4 feet from the property line instead of 15? Because if it were 15, then the front of the garage would be right there. So we're going to be about 15 feet from the back of the house, and it severely restricts the ability to back out and pull forward onto the street, and just restricts the use of the backyard.
Why couldn't he enter the garage from the south side, if that was the challenge?
From this side, put the garage over here, because he's then going to impact a 22-inch hardwood, a 10-inch hardwood, a 26-inch hardwood, and more severely impact that 6-inch hardwood.
I don't think that's accurate, but you and I can't decide that sitting here in this meeting.
Well,
it's not the time, place.
I'm just going to, let me just stop off one thing here. Mr. Adams is absolutely entitled to his opinion, but I am concerned about process, because one of the points that is relevant is whether or not he and his other neighbors have had a reasonable chance to observe the plans in their current form. That is a reasonable expectation. It's one that we ask all applicants to meet by sending out the letter, and we, at that exact meeting, suggested that Jack Zenfeld go around and knock on doors and offer to show them. So if he might have missed somebody, he might have done that, I don't know, but because he's not here, this becomes a much more problematic issue. This is not he said, she said, this is he said.
Well, there's 4 here. We can ask how many of the 4 he come and knock on the door.
Well, I don't know that we're going to need to, but I will take your word for it that even if one didn't and wanted to, that would probably be a reasonable circle.
I live across the street at 969 Lanier Boulevard. My concern is...
What is your name, sir?
Michael Lubin, L-U-B-I-N.
Thank you.
For the second story for the house, are they going to build within the existing roofing structure, or are they going up? And if they're going up, how much are they going up, and are they going wider?
No, Jack Zenfeld is not raising the ridge. He's keeping the side-to-side ridge the same.
The roof will not change.
On the back, he's going to add a gable that won't require variance, because it'll be 7 feet from the side yard, and it'll.
In other words, from the street, it won't look any different.
No.
Okay.
Sir.
My name is Steve Saunders. I live at 980 Lanier, I live next door. And I did receive information about the variance for the garage that Joe I did not, until yesterday, know that you were requesting a variance for the house. And I had no information about the variance that he's requesting for the second story of the house.
I'm gonna do two things here, I think. One is I'm gonna move to defer this for a month so that the process can play out as intended, as contemplated and intended, which is that folks get a reasonable chance.
By the way, I did not get information.
Well, I've already made the motion, but
Right.
if you,
I just wanted you
I
to know.
appreciate that. I'm gonna make
Not
that
getting
motion. Is there a second? Is there any further discussion? All right, before we vote, we'll write a note to Mr. Zampelli needs to do this. This is the way it is. He needs to do it. And I will add just one further comment. We'll review this again at the September planning meeting. You're all invited to come. I will also throw out the fact that historically, building within the footprint is of an existing building in R4 receives an approval from the Bureau of Zoning Adjustment in the very high 90s.
If the garage isn't within the footprint, unless I'm confused.
I'm sorry, no, I'm talking about the house piece within the existing footprint. And so that, I'm just throwing that out for information.
I was just getting.
No worries. I urge you to come to the planning meeting. We will write, Mr. Zampelli needs to go through this process. That's what it's all for. Any further discussion? I'll call for a vote on the main motion. All in favor of deferring this for 1 month? And that being everyone, any opposed, it's unanimous. We'll defer it 1 month. We'll write Mr. Zampella this. You may inform him, and we hope to see you all invited to the
And when
planning.
is the planning meeting?
It's the Wednesday before. It's,
What is that?
well, it's, yeah. It's the 4th.
Wednesday's the 5th, Jeff.
I'm sorry, I read the wrong number. September 5th at 7 p.m. around here. We're seeing, but I really want, the object here is not to replicate this discussion here. We want the work to occur at the site with the discussion, and we'd be happy to do that. We're happy to.
By the way, that's all we're asking for.
That's entirely reasonable. That's why I think you got a unanimous vote for it. So thank you for coming, and we're done with that one. Good luck. Hey,
That's the lesson of these, don't let my clients file agreements.
Well, it is about exchanging information. I'm going to return to the agenda, which is, have we any other City of Atlanta officials, fire officials, or any other elected officials or guests? Our next agenda item then is Streets Alive, and we have two representatives, Rebecca Cerna is back with us, and Matt Bravette is with us. Glad to have you both.
Thank you very much. I'm Rebecca Serna. I'm the Executive Director of the Atlanta Bicycle Coalition. And I know many of you probably know Matt. He's starting work with us this week as our membership and special events coordinator. And we just want to talk to you a little bit about Atlanta Streets Alive. It was such a big hit on May 20th, and the response was so wonderful that we decided to apply to do it again on October 7th on the same core route, and also to take advantage of the Beltline East Side Trail being opened up. And so with that loop connection, it will actually be close to 5 miles that people can walk, bike, rollerblade, whatever they'd like to do on two-wheel, human-powered, kind of on your own power. At the May event, we had about 50 different activity partners doing everything from street hockey to yoga to kids tumbling, lots of different things going on. There was an art bike parade that kicked it off, and we're really excited to be hopefully doing it again in the fall. We have been visiting each of the businesses because we do recognize that not having that vehicular traffic does impact, sometimes in very positive ways, sometimes in detrimental ways, the local businesses. So we're really in tune to that. And we've been going individually door to door. And overall, the results have been very positive. The take-home message is that the restaurants do better than usual business during the event. And the retail does slightly less than normal sales during the event. But they reported that they saw a lot of new customers, people who wouldn't have come in usually. It's hard to measure that exposure value, but most of them were very supportive of it being something that's positive for the community. I also just wanted to mention that in the fall of last year, we did a road safety audit of North Highland, and I mentioned that in light of some of the conversations and the motorcycle crash and the visibility issues. And so if any of you are interested in seeing that full report, I brought an excerpt of it. It covered Ponce as well. And we looked at North Highland and partly decided to look at doing our Streets Alive event on North Highland because of the high number of bicycle crashes that really stood out. And it's also a very highly trafficked bike corridor in the city. And so we wanted to kind of raise awareness of some of the other modes that use North Highland. It is a really pretty constrained corridor. I think that's part of the beauty of it, the reason people like being on it. It's got that local, that neighborhood scale, that walkable scale. But I'd be happy to share those results with you. We did have some suggestions for things that could be done to standardize some of the street alignments and hopefully improve some of the visibility issues in particular at the intersections. Matt, do you want to add anything?
I'll just add that my night job is president of 4-4 Neighbors, so I'm acutely aware of how communities work with this kind of thing. We worked with Rebecca a lot on the May event. Our neighborhood had a fantastic time, but we're definitely going to come to it aware of how to work with the neighborhood association, how to make sure that you all benefit from this and enjoy this as much as we did. So we have that attitude as well. That that's my other gig.
Well,
So I'm familiar with it. We do what we can.
and I was just going to say, in that other role, in that other hat, I just want to thank you. I know you were part of the group. Many of the neighborhood associations, and I'll talk about this during my check-in, contributed money for, and then for the trailers to get technology there. We did as well, and it was awesome to get Ward as part of that coalition. So thank you on that front. We're excited to have you on this year.
Yeah. So it will definitely make Virginia-Highland happy with the Land Streets Alive, as happy as Old 4-4 is.
Rebecca, you said that most of the businesses along North Highland were supportive. Were there any that notably were not?
There was, I don't want to call him out, but there was an antique shop that didn't do very well, which kind of makes sense, having antiques when there's a...
It must be in Posse Highland then.
It was in Inman Park.
Oh, okay, further. I was thinking about like our stretch of...
Not along this stretch, there really was...
Okay. Even the CVS drugstore?
Even CVS
Dynamite.
drugstore, yeah. Some people were a little lukewarm, and CVS didn't fall into that category, but Ace was surprisingly supportive of it.
I think they had a real good day that day.
Yeah, I think the folks who activated and kind of interacted with the event did really well, and I know Matt has some really creative ideas about how to help that antique shop do better, and just how to bring some of that business in and bring the people out.
Where are you connecting to the Beltline? You said you were going to connect to the Beltline.
What we're proposing, and I can pass this around, is to do a loop that would connect via Virginia Avenue, headed south towards Piedmont
So
Park.
you're going to go on Virginia Avenue.
Sorry, this is a big sidebar.
Are you paying in?
So that's on the one end, and then the other end is the section of trail in Old Fourth Ward where the new development access points.
Can you describe the route, because we haven't seen the new route?
So the route is primarily on North Highland from Virginia Avenue to Corley Street. And then the new section that we're proposing this time is along Virginia Avenue to connect down to the Beltline East Side Trail. And then the rest of the loop is the Beltline Trail itself. So they would close Virginia.
Yeah, I believe they are.
We're considering it. I would love to hear. I know Jen was here before asking for feedback about that. One thing that we're meeting with the security coordinator this week, considering is doing, if there is concern from the neighborhood, there are some options where we could potentially do a partial street closure. And I have to find out if the city will permit that. But it's such a wide street that might allow the event to have the car-free access and the motorized traffic to have that connectivity as well. But I'd love to hear any
Closing
feedback.
both of them really does sort of cut off our neighborhood. I mean, North Highland it was wonderful, but you could still get places.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like folks on Virginia put up with Summerfest because the proceeds do go back into our community. They don't like having Virginia closed for 2 whole days in the summer, and here you are closing it again. I think it's goes a little bit too far.
I agree with
Sounds like we need to do some canvassing.
Any other
to find out.
comments or questions from this?
What is it?
Were you in attendance at this, Pam?
What is it?
Did you go to
October
this?
7th, Sunday, October 7th, from 2
What
to
day is
6
it?
p.m. 2 to 6 p.m. on the Sunday afternoon.
You might have loved it.
It's a one-day,
You might have
4-hour
loved it.
event. I'm sorry, I should have led with that.
You said that you were going to do some canvassing. I think Virginia Avenue residents they're going to have a closure for the burger, Battle of the Burgers, which is also, I think it's September.
That closes Virginia Avenue?
A portion of
Doesn't in the past.
It actually did last year.
It did last year, it will again. So you should be hypersensitive to that, but also neighbors that live in that quadrant. It's our only way in and out, as you just said, that with Highland and Virginia. So if you're headed in that direction, you need to make sure that we at least have a way to get out of that corner without having to go to DeKalb County well, we can't even get that direction, but we have to go to.
And that was
We couldn't
something
get
that
out.
came up on North
We couldn't
Highland
get out.
as well. There were some residents that maybe they hadn't heard about the event, or maybe their parking lot was landlocked. And what we did with that event was the police officers just escorted them to the nearest cross street so that those residents didn't get trapped during the event.
Escorted
But I
their
hear what
car,
you're saying.
their car.
The cars, yes. But I hear your concern about that.
So what do you want to, you're trying to do this October 7th. I mean, if you want us to support it, very little time left to do it unless, but it's hard, it's not easy to support it without knowing a route or a piece. You have something proposed to us?
Well, it sounds like there's support for the same route that we did at the last event, and that you'd like us to go out and find out more from the residents affected on Virginia. And I don't believe that we need a vote, so I'm really just here for your feedback, because it's really important to us to make sure that the neighborhoods are supportive of it, and that's why we come out and ask for that feedback from you, so we have genuine enough.
Will you need a vote from the NPU?
It's an assembly, not a festival. We don't do tents or sales or anything like that. It's simply opening up the streets for physical activity. And so it's not a festival.
And in dealing with Virginia Avenue, then all of a sudden you're dealing with 2 bus routes to alter or change in some way. And also then you're pretty well blocking up the 2 main streets for emergency vehicles too.
Emergency vehicles actually do have access to the
Yeah.
route. We don't have anything permanently placed in the
Yeah, I
street.
know, but
And we've had that happen before.
Yeah.
They just clear the.
And this came up the last time too, in part their concern was emergency vehicles, and the people are much easier to move out of the way than cars for emergency traffic. I mean, if you have cars on Highland Avenue, that blocks the flow of a police car or a fire truck far more than people that just move to the side. So it's actually much more rapid for emergency vehicles with people instead of normal traffic.
Go ahead, Dan.
What was the estimated attendance in May?
It was 13,000.
It was packed. It was great. It was extremely well received. JD?
Well, I just have one more thing. I know everybody enjoyed it, and it's kind of a fun idea. But when you say you need to talk to the people on Virginia Avenue, as was pointed out by Debbie, North Highland being closed and then Virginia being closed boxes in a whole bunch of people that live either to the west of Highland or to the south of Virginia. And so it's not just the people on Virginia that are affected by the closing of Virginia. I just want to point that out, because I'm inside that little box myself.
And so is Debbie.
All right, well, thank you for coming. We know how to reach you, and we'll get information to you, and thanks for bringing your posse with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Matt, thank you very much for coming, and thanks for
Yes.
The fourth board neighbor said, you're going to do the rest.
Apparently so.
All right, we on to education. Actually, no, we're on to bylaws. Ms. Ferrara.
Okay. I'm sure most of you recall the last meeting we had provided proposed amendments to the bylaws. Most of it was just cleaning up what had been there for many, many years. There were a couple, I don't even want to call them substantive changes, but they address things like, whether or not board members can vote by email and how many votes would be required in that instance, and clarifying all the quorum requirements, which really were kind of all fuddled together. And whether or not the alternate director can have a vote when there are any missing board members. Previously, he or she could not, and we thought that was fair. So we invited everybody to review them. We posted them on our website. I don't believe we've received any comments. Did you receive any, Jeff?
No.
Okay. So I guess what do we need to do with that?
We need to propose that the board adopt a proposal to the membership for adoption at the meeting, which is 30 days, hopefully, from today.
So is there anybody who has any comments or wants to raise any issues? We propose the motion for the floor. I move to adopt them, propose them for approval at the annual meeting in September.
Is there a second? Second. Any further comment? All in favor, please raise your hand. And opposed? And not voting are 2. Thank you very much. It was a huge amount of work and very painstaking, and I very much appreciate you doing it. And I think future people that try to make sense of those provisions will be eternally grateful. If for nothing more, then you can find the definitions at the back, but there are many other things. On to education. Ms. Bush-Lenore.
Okay, well, I will be short, sweet, and to the point, hopefully. To update everyone who was at the meeting where the Virginia-Highland Association voted to provide up to $1,500 to Inman Middle School for technology in the trailers.